Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. I'm Callie.
And I'm Bean.
So today we are going to give you some recommendations for the winter season. So winter has shown up in the Midwest. There is snow on the ground. I can see snow out my window and I'm not happy about it.
And there's been snow for like over a week now.
So we decided to do a little bit of a video to give you some recommendations on books to read during the winter season. Some cozy, fun reads. Some books that just take place in winter and get you really into that whimsical winter wonderland kind of vibe.
I think we only have one that's holiday.
All right, so the first book I'm going to talk about is actually kind of a transition from fall to winter, and that is A Curse. This is shiny.
This is very shiny.
A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Brigid Kemmerer. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling that is a little different. So this story follows Ren, who's a prince, who is the cursed prince, and it repeats every season of his birthday, which is from the first day of fall to the first day of winter. So it's kind of that transition where we get that entire fall season. Because, I mean, technically right now, it's fall.
It is.
Technically. But there is some, like, nice snowy scenes and some battles in the snow that are very atmospheric. So we follow Ren, who is the cursed prince, and we also follow Harper, who is taken quite literally from Washington, D.C., and plucked right into this magical land to try and save this prince. And she wants nothing. No. Nothing to do with him. I loved this book so much. I read it in the summer for Booktubeathon, or the Reading Rush. Sped through this so quickly. Is a beautiful story. It has a lot of representation. Harper actually has cerebral palsy, and we get to see that representation. Ren isn't the typical beast character where he's actually is a human, but he's almost werewolf-ish. Yeah, it's very cool. Towards the end of the season is when he goes beast mode. It's kind of cool. And there's also Gray, who is the last attendant to the prince. So kind of think he's kind of a mix of Lumiere and Cogsworth in one person.
Ooh.
And Gray is phenomenal. I love him. The next book is actually about him, and I'm ready for it. So this is a series. The second book comes out on January 7th. It's called A Heart So Fierce and Broken, and it's just as shiny and pretty as this
Very
one.
shiny book.
It's also the special edition with the holograph.
All right. The first book I'm going to talk about is actually nonfiction, and that's going to be Dewey, the Small Town Library Cat Who Touched the World, by Vicki Myron. This is a nonfiction book that follows Dewey, who is this adorable little cat on the front, who is found one winter night in the return slot of a library. He ends up becoming like this staple at the library and ends up becoming friends with all of the staff and all of the patrons, and it's really just a heartwarming story about a little kitty who had bad luck that got turned around, and it is adorable. It really is. I love this book. I call it a winter read because it starts in winter, but then it follows Dewey throughout the years of his life. And so it is adorable. Highly recommend this one.
So, when looking through my bookshelves for winter/holiday reads, I don't know why, but when I think of winter and wintertime, I apparently am drawn to Beauty and the Beast retelling because...
Are we surprised, though?
I'll talk about this book till the day I die.
It's true.
I love this book so much. So my other recommendation is going to be A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. Sarah J. Maas is probably my favorite YA author. And I recommend this one for winter because we start in winter and Feyre, who is our main character, gets taken by a beast to spring court. So this is almost like the opposite transition from like winter to spring. But it is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but with fae and fairies and different kinds of magic. There's a lot of mental health representation in this entire series, which is wonderful. More in the later books, but you have to read this one to understand the later books. So, this is not YA, though. This is NA, which is new adult. So... 18 and over. Beauty and the Beast, I don't know. I always, whenever I imagine winter, and whenever I try and think of a Disney princess that represents winter, I always go to Belle, because they had the little snowball scene. Mm-hmm. And so I think of Belle when I think of winter princessy things. I don't know why, but I do.
The second book that I'm going to talk about is a middle grade, and it is interesting because it's a retelling of the Christmas Carol story. And that's The Last of the Spirits by Priestley. Now, this book I actually picked up on Book Outlet one year just on a whim because I saw the cover and went, yeah, okay, sure. And it's a bit of a creepy story, but it follows two characters that we actually do see in the Christmas Carol. So I don't have a really good way of explaining this other than if you remember the book and the movie, the second ghost has two children that are underneath his robes. This follows those two children. And now these two are actually homeless kids that are on the streets, and at the beginning of the book, the older brother, Sam, who's like 12, maybe, asks Ebenezer Scrooge for money and is turned down in a very Scrooge-like way. And he then sends him and his little sister are starving. He decides he's going to murder Scrooge, which seems dramatic.
Very dramatic 12-year-old.
Yes. I mean, he's a 12-year-old and he's freezing, so he's probably not functioning on all cylinders here. And basically, he's then visited by a ghost who tells him, you really shouldn't do this, dude. This is not a thing that you should do. But he still decides to try and go through with it, and this follows them as they go through their version of the Christmas Carol story. Highly recommend it. It's really short. It's 180 pages, and it's like a child's book, so I highly recommend this one. It is it reminds me a little bit of a kind of a Nightmare Before Christmas theme where you can read it during the holidays or you can read it in a spooky time because it is a bit of a creepy book.
So the last book that I have is probably the most recent book that I've read out of these, and that is East by Edith Pattou. This is a retelling of the Norwegian story, The Girl and the Bear, which a girl named Rose, who is the 7th child in her family, a white bear comes to her family, and her family's poor and starving and dying. One of her sisters is really sick, and the white bear says, Rose, if you come with me, all of your family's troubles will be solved. And Rose is like, okay, cool. Good talk. So Rose goes off with this white bear, realizes that he's actually cursed and by some trolls, and she has to try and figure out how to break his curse, if she can break his curse. And this is just a beautifully, beautifully written story. I fell in love with the writing. It's almost like reading poetry in story form, which is something I've always really loved, and not enough books have, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So I would and the reason I say it's a winter, this happens in the dead of winter. There's a polar bear. I mean, come on. How more winter could you get?
That's fair.
So he doesn't drink Coca-Cola, but he lives in the wintry mountain. But he does live in this cold wintry palace. And it's just a beautiful story. It's a duology. The second book is called West, and it is just as beautiful. That one has to deal with more of a snake, but whatever.
The last book that I'm going to talk about today is actually one of my favorite books of the year, and that is No Exit by Taylor Adams. Now, this is a thriller, so this is a violent book, and this follows Darby, who is like early 30s, late 20s, and she is on her way home to visit her sick mother. Her sick mother, who she has not gotten along with in a long time, and then on her way home, there is this horrible blizzard, and she ends up having to take refuge at a stop, she ends up having to take refuge at a rest stop, and at this rest stop, there are 5 people, including her, and she goes outside at one point and realizes that in the back of a van in the parking lot, there is a child in a cage. And, and she then takes it upon herself to release this child and then try and figure out who it is among the 4 strangers at the rest stop is the one who has kidnapped this child. And then all sorts of stuff ensues, and there's lots of whodunit kind of things and realizing that everyone has secrets, including Darby. And that's one of the things I really liked about this book, is that Darby is not a likable character. She is not your traditional hero at all, because she's really not in a good place in her life. She's got some drug problems that she's dealing with. She's got some job problems too. I can't remember if she's unemployed or if she just quit her job. It was something like that. But I really did enjoy this one, and I sped right through it and highly recommend it.
So those are all of our, well, not all, but those are just a couple of books that we recommend for the winter months. We're not really into the cozy romance kind of people. We're
really.
more wintry, killy, fantasy kind of people, in case you didn't catch that at all.
Yeah, we don't do the romance.
So these are just some books that we would recommend reading, you know, when you're snowed in. Some things that are just really fun, get you in that wintry kind of mood, even though winter has already arrived here.
Curl up under a blanket in front of a fire, whether it is real or digital, is up to you.
So that's going to be all for today. So feel free to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We post videos every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday.
And if you want to be notified whenever we post these videos, hit the little bell icon down below right now. And feel free to comment. We'd love to hear what your favorite wintry reads are. Maybe we'll get into something that's not Beauty and the Beast.
I regret nothing.
Or maybe not. We'll see. So yeah, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye!